Now I got, like, a really fresh start here, it looks like, so it'll be a while till I have to, have a time limit, so I'm gonna do my best still not to make these too long. I delete a lot. What I had on here, and whatever it was, it's now, like, gone. Bye-bye. I didn't know I pressed that, I'm like, "Oops, well, oh well, it's alright. You saw me do everything and etcetera, so no big deal." Phones stay here and also they fade and they die away, they don't stay alive. They're worthless, they're of the world, they're not of Jesus. Blows and wounds scrub away evil. This is in, chapter 20, Proverbs, and verse 30. And beatings purge the inmost being. And I really had a blow. It's in Zechariah. Blow of God's judgment upon me. He did himself 5 years ago instead of me doing suicide 5 years ago. Let me read this again. Think about what this is saying here. Oh, what exactly I had. Because a church taught me about Jesus I was never taught until I met every single one of them in that building. Blows and wounds, scrub, so cleansing, inner, deep, intense cleansing, away evil, and beatings purge the inmost being. So when Jesus beats you and hurts you, like Jen might be a little bit seeming hurtful or divisive, but I'm preaching and speaking life over the death I once had. And so whenever somebody's talking that way, they deserve to go through that correcting and hurt that it does Jesus talking, etc., and things that are death, not life, that I used to have. Like everything's about me and etc. Let's say money with a job, policy, rules, you name it. Just have money. And when the rules and policies are anti-Christ based, false teaching, in other words, false doctrine, that's not a good job to have no matter what it is, and no matter college education or not. I just gotta admit that. Why recommend beatings? This is a really good point here. It says, this verse is not recommending abuse, but is suggesting that the person who takes a beating, so when we experience childhood abuse, Jesus deserves to hurt us and beat us back. Beat us internally so intense, and maybe also a little bit harsh back, to give our lives completely to Him. We all the whole time we're just hurting and, like everything's about us. It's not about us, it's about Him, above every single one of us and above everything on the face of this earth, including money. Jesus paid a cost. So money is just gotta stay here. It doesn't go with you to heaven. Your job doesn't either. Your food doesn't either. Your clothes don't either. They are like dropped off you. They don't go with you. Wherever you're sitting or in the rapture, where you're laying, etc., they just stay right here. They don't go with you. Your soul definitely goes with you, your heart. So you don't want to let anybody know you've been child abused. You're in really a deep, humongous amount of trouble with our Father, Jesus Christ, created every single one of us. And let's say you wanted to keep what your parents were only taught you, that to love the parents and honor them, taking the 10 Commandments out of context. This is a really huge deal, this one I'm about ready to say here. Your parents did not teach you anything, truth and teachings of Jesus Christ. They taught you the false teaching, religion that's just nothing but death. And they get their own way above Jesus' way. Our Father, He created every single one of us and His own children and gave up His own. So gave up. False teaching religion, every single thing of false teaching religion. And we're sinners. We're never going to be as perfect as He is. I love just saying this, but I'm about to say. Every single one of us, no matter what type of background we came from, but unhealed child abuse, parents, from the grandparents, and then it just continues generation. There's no good ending to parents' legacy. And Jesus Christ knows it's enough for me to say it. Our Father, who created every single one of us. Parents that do that type of teaching, and just to keep themselves not being found out about abuse, and then you run into, this is me I'm talking about here, you run into a whole bunch of friendships, relationships, even a roommate, I will include. She told me she was child abused, and she tried to deceive, everybody at my team meeting this past week. This is pretty much almost over, and Sunday's a new week. And I was not going to listen to any deception coming out from anyone in that. I say no, and I immediately resist it. I reject it. I don't listen to anything that is against all God's truth, all God's teachings. I will not ever listen to a physical human being when it's going against our Father, Jesus Christ, who lives inside out of me. He became their inner replacement to defeat my biological parents' teaching. And so I will never disobey, dishonor, and disrespect our Father, Jesus Christ, as long as I live and have breath and, heart beating my chest. I will never listen to a single physical human being as long as I live on the face of this earth. They are not the Messiah. They are not Jesus Christ. And that's the whole point behind Matthew 24. Cannot love people and please them the rest of our lives. Just to be liked, loved, accepted, and not go through conflict and go through the hate. I mean, that's exactly what happened to a friendship relationship. Now it's like a second round of wickedness. Increase of wickedness. False teaching religion is wicked. It's sin. People that never ever want you to know if they abuse somebody, they sin against my home church. My bio parents did. And I will condemn. That's what this means, to condemn the false teacher religion. Jesus himself did it in John 8. My lead pastor can figure this baby out that I'm talking about here. This huge, intense reality of truth. Like when I say baby, I mean huge, big deal baby. I'm not a baby. Intensity. It's a huge, huge deal. Jesus Christ, that's the whole point behind the cross. No matter what, I'm going to say this again, no matter what kind of background we came from. Unhealed child abuse of parents towards you when you're in your childhood, or none of that. And, you had parents that knew Jesus Christ or maybe a little bit separated, like I had my bio, grandparents. So my parents, they were separated. My grandfather on my dad's side was false teacher and unhealed child abuse. My grandmother on my mom's side was unhealed child abuse and false teacher, but my grandfather on my dad's side was malignant, narcissistic, abusive towards my dad. And these are all connected. Narc supply. So think about narc supply. That's part of false teaching religion. All this does connect. Jezebel, Ahab spirits. Those are one to be controlling, manipulative, and have people as their idol. So when I say have people as their idol, think about Genesis with Adam and Eve. I didn't say this in the last one, but I'll say it here right now. The leaves are used as an idol in that story to cover physically themselves up, but deception with the leaves in Adam and Eve. It's really also the soul, like the apple starts of looking at the outside, external. This apple looks really delicious and really good. And I told this to Kevin. I said, yesterday I said this to him. I should just bring one of these home and it's a rotten apple or it's a rotten, prune or tomato. And just like that's the inside of deception, like of false teachers, a physical human being you might talk to, but my pastors, the ones that love me, Jesus Christ, they went through that multiples times where they didn't pay attention to the focus on the heart and never asked me anything. And let me just say this, I don't know, but it's like I'd love for them just to admit it and be so honest, like Jesus knows this about you. If you really think long and hard, is it because somebody has a disability? You can't just admit that piece to it of the cake. And when I say cake, it's really submitting what might be a little bit of insecurity, but autism has nothing to do with false teaching or religion. Now, I will admit, when you go through child abuse, you'll be first appearing like you got, severe, moderate autism. Now, that should be a really huge point my go-to. I have a roommate right now. Some, few people in my life been saying, sounds like she has moderate to severe. Just like my go-to had looked at me as. And listened. He really thought long and hard about this. He really thought that my autism was that bad. Because he only listened to people that did not create me. And I didn't know anything either until our Father Jesus Christ revealed everything to and through me, what the hell was going wrong with the inside out of me. He can only do that. He's what created me. Nobody has the permission other than himself to say what my autism is. So I won't listen to anyone. They're not my Father. Jesus Christ, they're not the Messiah. Not the one that created me. And let me include, they don't know everything in His truth. My case manager doesn't. I don't like saying this part, but I'm going to. Those that love me, Jesus Christ never did. Of all His teachings, all His truth. Otherwise, you would have hurt me bad enough with this I'm about ready to read here. So I'm going through, once again, I'll say this again. I'm going through an increase of wickedness a second time. How could false teaching religion, Jen, go through another hate a second time in her life, being discriminated, not ready to lead a church? I don't like saying that, but this is really, really incredibly important to have when you start leading a church, was understanding what deception is. And that's just where I've heard very few pastors admit this, that way too many did not learn about it or go through it and experience it, the deep entrenchment, but now my leadership, my home church has. They have an opportunity. And I was second, chance of being left behind because I had a whole story I've shared so many times where I was never told the truth to anybody. They just discriminated me with false teaching religion since my date of birth, 1987. In 20 days from today, I turned 38. And every single health warning I've received has happened. The heart attack in May could have been it. But our Father Jesus Christ gives us second chances. He is the Father of second chances, of life over death. And so, I sat on the edge of my bed, and it prevented it from continuing to just, continuing to have me fall to the ground and collapse in the same timing. I literally felt like my heart stopped beating. Suddenly, it was not a panic anxiety attack. I've had panic anxiety attacks majority of my life till I was 33. In November. And it was definitely not a panic anxiety attack. It really felt like my heart stopped beating suddenly in my chest. And I was going to collapse to the ground very quick. So I sat at the edge of my bed. set up on the edge of my bed. And it kept it and prevented it from progressing. And so stress your entire life would only do that to you if you never got away from it. Parents weren't ready to have children, especially a disabled. Not heal from, child abuse, they're not going to be able to handle it and be ready for it, prepared for that. And that could have been me. I'll keep saying this. If I never met my go-to pastor, he taught me things I was never taught in my childhood. While I was in high school, etc., I never was taught these things he was teaching me. I needed that counseling. I needed that advice. I needed that teaching. And he didn't have to be related to me. Jesus' blood is thicker than biology. That means the biological is flesh and blood of sin that I received in my day of birth, coming out my mother's womb. And that's how powerful the church was used by our Father, Jesus Christ. I cannot stand the thought every single time I think about this or remind myself this. It's such a negative thought, half and half. So, with my person stood right in front of me. He was the first teaching about Jesus, August 23rd, 2009. He has the same last name as my great-grandmother. I was going to say Brown. It's a very common name. And he was that powerful, and all the rest of them in that building. Our Father Jesus Christ gave him that huge privilege and honor through the Holy Spirit. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here alive and breathing right now today. And have mercy on those that are entrenched false teaching religion. That's the most common type of sin and struggles, because we all have it from when we come out of our mother's womb. But when you're raised like this, it's more deeper, because by a physical human being, your parents that taught you wrong and then you haven't. That's why in Matthew 10 it's there. If you love your father and mother more than, and then the children they transfer it on to. The daughter, Jen, Grace Joy Lorraine. If you love your daughter, Grace Joy Lorraine. In other words, they name it by Jen. That's not my name anymore. It's just I have a pending with a new name because I had identity theft since 1987 placed upon my other name. And because they used deception never ending and tried to see me so many times, I got saved. And so then I started seeing that same shift in the man that stood right in front of me. I didn't know what it was called exactly, but I found out by these people that are further out of pastors. And I did something God told me to do to help that man. No. What happened to him and all the rest of them? To give him encouragement and proper feeding, the same way I received it, what exactly it's called, what happened. And I need to read in the Bible, so with the Bible and these other pastors I listened to and also read some of their books about deception, intimidation, seeking approval of man on earth, to be loved, liked, accepted. And that is not our way to heaven. Just because Jesus is a loving Father, he so loved the world. And we're not supposed to play him and not be very careful when people he created are trying to deceive you when you're in Christ. That is so painful and heartbreaking to our Father to see his own children accept it. And it's through the opposite spirit, Father lies Satan. It's his teaching, his truth. And that's not easy for anyone. It's courageous of me in Christ. It's pretty courageous of a thing. After people led me that were not related to me, and God used them, it's not easy. But so speaking truth is hard to hear, accept. And then me going through that of accepting these things that were hard for me, accept and hear that our Father Jesus Christ, what was wrong with me. And I was never given the truth. For my biological pastors couldn't see this, what I was having wrong with me. 10 years straight. Jesus knew before any of us knew. He also knew what that church down the street when I was a 3-year-old little toddler, or 30 years ago, this plan mapped out ahead of them and every single one of us. Friendship relationship. I'm giving back to that man that stood in front of me on August 23rd, 2009. He planted seeds in me. I was never taught about Jesus, ever. I needed them. To teach me, because I was never taught till I walked in there on a Sunday morning. And then November 2009. It's right in this journal of like over a decade ago. I made that. And I don't know if they lost the original copy. The 3, they're still there. But I have the hard copy of it. And it's taken me some time. I'm not going to go any further than that. But it's going to be different. That's all I want to say. In that, it had the 2009 true story of the first encounter I had with our Father Jesus Christ during communion service. Then another one the same day during the night after the communion service. And so the first one was so legit with why God told me to go to them. In 2021. Romans 8:28. For the good of those who love him according to his purpose. With Romans 8:28. That's all I know with that verse. The good of those who love him according to his purpose. And this is his purpose he's always had for me. Not to keep being around false teaching the rest of my life with the services, because parents were never ready to become parents. They signed me up after I was diagnosed with autism it's right in the documents. I was down the street when this happened to me. And yeah, this week I told my mom these things I've been saying and starting to be comfortable enough. Comforter is Jesus. And say at the meeting, turn on the phone, you are not ready to love and accept me, Mom. Just admit it, and that you signed me up for these services when I was a 10-year-old girl. Coming home with my life focusing on, you were not ready to become my mom and dad. You and Dad. You were not ready. Just admit it, Mom. And then my case manager being in denial. That was really, really frustrating for me to see with our Father Jesus Christ. He is not the one that created me either. And he was not around me to say that and like just try to deceive me and play God, play the Messiah role, and put a label on somebody and say that's not the truth. I'm like, you don't know. You just want to keep being in denial and being higher than your Father Jesus Christ. And you're not higher than him. You're not perfect than him. You're not smarter than him. You're not bigger and better than him. And I'm defending that name. We're supposed to defend it. Now let somebody talk and get their way and let you accept it. They're not our Father. Every single one of us. No one is him who created every single one of us. But when someone can see things that were just exactly legit, you don't have to use a physical gun. You don't have to use a physical knife. It's like I can see this no matter where or who. Like my roommate. Let me just real quick share this, what she shared with me. She shared with me she was abused in her childhood. That's the indicator where autism was the brain. And she shared with me she has autism. And some reason, I don't know what kind of gift this would be considered. But this is the second person I've ever asked in my life. And I was right. That they have autism. And otherwise, I don't know if they do. Patrick, I met at my parents' church, Catholic church, during altar serving. He was the first ever person I asked. He's like, how'd you know? And I just told him his posture. And it was different from posture with this roommate. It was exactly the same struggles I once had. She was also child abused. And abuse hurts you in your soul. It affects you in your soul. It can also affect your mental health, emotional and spiritual. But has nothing to be discriminated over with autism. And for me to listen to anybody towards my roommate that she has a more severe and moderate type of autism, I'm not going to listen to any of that from anybody. I also was abused in my childhood. I also had seizures. She's today shared with me that she still has seizures. I asked her, did you have them since you were an infant baby too? She said she has. There's a lot of common I'm finding out about her that I can relate to. And then I'm just going to go a little bit deeper here. In my documents, it's like I'm going through what my parents did put up and deal with me. Absolutely everything. Like poop, pee on the walls. It may not be on the walls. But last night, and that was probably the most I've seen with this roommate. And I'm going through the same thing my parents went through with me. And that's how I just always remind myself that I'm not going to get mad at my roommate. And because she's, an adult, no. Because I did the same thing with my parents when I was a little girl. And just maybe she's like later, it's taken her more time than me. And I love embracing these things and finding them out and just remind myself when you go in there, you see something. I also had that when I was little. And then she shared me where somebody's in the bathroom. There's only one bathroom here. She does the same thing, another thing, going out in the yard. And I did the same thing when I was a little girl too. And I just, I'm going through a lot of what my parents went through with me. The challenges, the difficult. But I was one of their kids. It's not one of my kids, but it's one of God's kids. My roommate is. In my response that I do, that's important to my father. I do not want to hurt him. I do not want to offend him. Don't want to live out in hate and build it up. These, circumstance I was not. No one's got enduring experience and see, etc. Like a whole amount of judgment back on myself and just the whole story behind it. So like, can you do better than your own parents did? Going through with that with the bathroom, etc. Deception. Even, once again, but your roommate. And I once did it too. So there are people just to hide that I was abused my childhood, love the parents more than God. And there's just a lot of really inner common struggles and sin I see in her that I cannot stand and listen to somebody say. That means she's more severe or moderate than you. I appeared and people guessed and assumed that with me. And people doing that to her, I will not listen to such. None of these people created her. Lord Jesus created her just like he created me. And so I love to reflect and think and ponder. Like, why am I going through this, or why am I seeing this? Did I ever do this? In my life, whether with a roommate or, let's say in these documents I read, etc. I mean, I love just, admitting the truth. Jesus knew before me. I mean, why be afraid when he heals you from all this I once had? There's no point. He deserves the praise from my lips, from my overflow. Is that intense? Well, he could do that inner work. And why are we so afraid to admit it? We shouldn't be. We're really healed inside out of you. Everyone wants his own children. Really? Why are we so afraid to say, who do I listen to? Instead, Jesus, a physical human being, did not create Jen. It's like, what's she doing different than anyone else I know of? I don't let somebody define and say who somebody is and label them, no matter who. I mean, I shared this about my neighbor couple. And the other neighbor, the other neighborhood, etc. My mom and dad were like, maybe he has Alzheimer's. I'm like, excuse me? You're not the one that created him. First of all, mother, you're not the one that created him. How's that not defending and protecting Jesus' truth, his teachings according to his word? And how is it not loving him more than self and anyone, anything? By not listening to people that did not create that man. They used to stalk me in the neighborhood. It's the worst double whammy situation I've ever so far been in my whole life. About environment and living situation, no joke. It doesn't matter how nice it looks on the outside, inside, it can still have murder. Of spiritual murder done in front of Jesus Christ's eyes. False teaching is considered spiritual murder. It also has idolatry with it. You want what this person has. You don't know how to get it. You don't know how to receive it. Yeah, Jesus does this beating.